From Crescent City to Common Ground, a journey through history, healing, and hope. Hey guys, veterans, scholars, and fellow keepers of our shared history. Today we gather not merely to reflect, but to resurrect, to pull forward the pages of time and trace them with our present fingers, to walk cobbled streets that echo jazz and gaze upon battlefields where cannon smoke once parted the sky. This is a tale of two American cities, New Orleans, Louisiana, resilient, soulful, and unapologetically alive, and Vicksburg, Mississippi, a scarred crest in our national story, but one where healing took root and peace took precedence. And it is a story of two colors, blue and gray. Once drenched in conflict, they now exist side by side in memory, bound in a flag that refuses to tear. The Crescent City Soul, New Orleans. A city born from the river. New Orleans was born in 1718, nestled like a jewel in the curve of the mighty Mississippi, founded by French colonizers and tossed between empires like a coin, first to Spain, back to France, and then into the hands of the United States during Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase. New Orleans had many midwives, but became something altogether unique. Here is a city where cultures dance together instead of colliding, where Creole is not just a cuisine, it's a composition of language, lineage, and laughter. Rich balconies lean toward Spanish-tilled courtyards. African drums pulse beneath the hymns of colonial cathedrals. And perhaps nowhere else has music, true, from the gut, American music, rooted deeper than in New Orleans. The city gave birth to jazz, and with it, birthed the nation's soundtrack, New Orleans and the Civil War. Before the war, New Orleans was the largest city in the Confederacy, a vital port, a commercial heart, and a place of both grand plantations and relentless poverty. It was also a political lightning rod. In 1862, it fell to Union forces under Admiral Farragut without a battle inside the city. It was strategic gain that likely shortened the war, but occupation does not erase sorrow. What followed was tension, resistance, and military rule. The years that followed saw a city in flux. Freedmen from the Freedmen's Society sought new lives in a space still hostile to their freedoms. Racial violence, political upheaval, and economic chaos marked the Reconstruction era, but so did resilience, and so did progress. The city adapted, changed, rebuilt, always with that unmistakable hum, that New Orleans rhythm that refused to quiet. The blue and gray, Vicksburg and the Peace Jubilee, the Siege of Vicksburg. As the Union squeezed the Confederacy from the west, the city of Vicksburg stood as a fortress. For 47 days in 1863, Union troops surrounded the city. Citizens burrowed into hillsides, living in caves to avoid shell fire. Children were born underground. Meals became meager. Horses, then rats, then nothing. When General John Pemberton surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant on July 4th, the Mississippi came under Union control, and the Confederacy was, quite literally, cut in two. For decades afterward, Vicksburg didn't celebrate Independence Day, not in protest, but in mourning. July 4th was not freedom, but loss. 54 years later, everything changed. In 1917, just as the United States prepared to enter the Great War in Europe, Vicksburg hosted something no one thought possible: a national reunion and peace jubilee of Civil War veterans. Over 8,000 aging soldiers, both Union and Confederate, camped side by side, shaking hands where once they had drawn swords. The fields where they once bled became the grounds where they embraced. A reunion, a reconciliation. Imagine it. Men who once screamed war cries across battle lines, now sharing stories, jokes, pipe smoke, and photographs of grandchildren. This wasn't just a personal homecoming. It was a national gesture of healing. Monuments were unveiled, oaths exchanged, and tears were shared. It was a statement, loud and noble, that this great nation, though cracked, would never crumble. The threads that bind, what these stories mean. New Orleans, a city that survived hurricanes of both weather and war, sings life. Vicksburg, once a war-torn town, now whispers peace. One is rhythm and soul, the other reflection and stone. They are polarities, and yet they belong to the same compass. The power of memory. History isn't ink, it's blood, sweat, and breath. The veterans in 1917 didn't forget their trauma. They remembered together. And in that shared remembrance, something powerful took root: empathy. This is what reunions do. They do not erase, they reconcile. The power of reconciliation. To stand in the same field with your former enemy takes courage. To walk it as a friend, that takes grace. The Blue and Gray reunion was the story of men who laid down both weapons and grudges. It is proof that unity is not from victory. It is born from the desire to understand. Division still lives. Though the guns have long since fallen silent, America still struggles with partisanship, with inequality, and with the persistent ache of race and remembrance. But history offers us not just warnings, but blueprints. The role of storytelling. By remembering Vicksburg and celebrating New Orleans, we affirm that our story is still being written, and every generation chooses what chapter comes next. Let us not abandon complexity for convenience. Let us not give in to grievance without grace. A call to action. So here's the call. Be the reunion. Be the hands that reach across. And be the voice that listens before speaking. Tell the hard truths. Share the quiet moments. And be the story worth retelling. Let us remember that the river still rolls through New Orleans, bearing the music of generations. That the cannons atop Vicksburg's hills are now silent, symbols, not threats. And here are pictures from Metairie Cemetery in New Orleans from some of the veterans of the Civil War. John R. Abbott, born in 1837, died in 1906, from New Orleans, Louisiana, from the Army of Tennessee. He served in the 5th Company, Battalion, Washington Artillery, Confederate Army, Civil War. Corporal Alexander Little Fatty Allain, born May 25, 1844, in West Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He died in May of 1910 in St. Mary Parish. He served in the 5th Company, Battalion, Washington Artillery, U.S. Civil War as a corporal. Philip D. Stevenson writes in his memoirs, "In one of our artillery duels, Alex Allain did an act which stirred the admiration of us all. The saplings which formed the sides of our embrasures began to give way under the impact of shots, and dirt behind them fell forward into it, threatening to fill it, and so block the line and sweep our fire. We were in the midst of a particularly fierce fight, and would be practically muzzled by that bank of dirt forming fast before our gun. Alex jumped up into the embrasure, into that focus of the shot and shell of the opposing battery and bullets of the sharpshooters, and proceeded to repair it. He asked for an axe, straightened and drove down the upright post, replaced the saplings behind them, and with a spade removed that dirt he could, and jumped down and resumed the sighting of our peeps. I recall as though yesterday how cool he was, how calm and pleasant his voice sounded as he gave directions to those of us who waited on him, and how unconcerned he was as he turned his back upon the enemy when the work required it. He was not touched. He was there only a few moments, but every second brought deadly peril. It was in a position where 3 out of 4 guns were disabled in 3 weeks' time, and ours among them. It was in that very occasion, indeed, that ours was knocked to pieces a short while after it, a shell exploding just under the mouth of the gun, sending us all right and left, stunned and wounding 5 out of the 8 of us. Alex and his brother were among them. He was born at Hard Times Plantation in West Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana. He was a veteran in the 5th Company Washington Artillery Civil War. He served with his brother, V.F. Elaine. Lieutenant George Alps, born June 1838 in Cincinnati. He died in September of 1895 in New Orleans, age 57 years and 2 months. First Lieutenant, Confederate Army in the Civil War. He served in the 4th Company, Battalion, Washington Artillery, Louisiana Artillery, appointed a sergeant in 1861, and later that same year was made 2nd Lieutenant. Appointed 1st Lieutenant in 1862. He worked as a cotton broker. He is survived by a wife and 5 daughters, one of whom was married to Dr. R.A. Murphy. P.G.T. Beauregard. Pierre Beauregard, born May of 1818, died February of 1893 in New Orleans. He was a Civil War Confederate general called the Little Creole and the Little Napoleon. He was the 5th most senior Confederate officer, holding a variety of commands. Though his opportunities were not limited by ongoing public conflicts with President Jefferson Davis, he was stationed under John Pemberton. Having proven himself, he was sent north in April of 1864, where he was a major assistant of General Lee, stopping Beast Butler at Bermuda 100 and several times preventing the capture of Petersburg. Despite his valuable service, Beauregard alienated his superiors with grandiose but impractical schemes for winning the war. And with the fall of Atlanta, he was once more exiled to the West. Exercising overall authority during General Hood's Tennessee campaign, he took no direct part in the operation. After the Battle of Nashville and the subsequent retreat to Alabama, he joined what little was left of the Army of Tennessee, serving the final months of the war under Joe Johnston. Taking part in the final conflicts, he surrendered, along with Johnston, to General Sherman in Durham on April 26, 1865, and after receiving his parole on May 2nd at Greensboro, he returned home to rebuild his fortune. And the last one I'm going to cover is Captain James Dinkins, born 1845 and died in 1939. He was the oldest child of Cynthia and Alexander. He was sent by his parents to Charlotte, North Carolina Military Institute. He reached there very near his 15th birthday. He entered the Confederate Army when he was barely 16 years of age. He was in the first battle of the war and almost the last. James was officially listed as the youngest officer of the Confederate Army in the war between the states. After the war, he became banker in New Orleans, Louisiana. He died in July 19, 1939 at 94 years old. So I hope you enjoyed this little walk and Civil War reunion. Have a good day, guys.